Hi, my name is Katie Deutsch, and for my first year in ISM, I'm studying forensic science. I wanted to take ISM because I wanted to make sure that I was headed into college with at least a general idea of what I wanted to study and major in. My quote this year is, "Unless you try and do something beyond what you've already done, you will never grow," by Ronald Osborne. I think this quote is motivational because I think we all know it's easy to take the shortcut. But if you want to better yourself and be able to get the results that you're looking for, you have to keep trying new things and not be afraid of failure. Oh, I already went that way. So on to forensic science. I'm sure that many of you have seen variations of it on TV in shows like CSI, Criminal Minds, and Bones. Forensic science is the process of gathering and examining information from physical evidence, which is then used in the court of law. So in simpler terms, it's the processing of physical evidence for any sort of legal investigation. It plays an important part of the criminal justice process because it allows the investigators to gain more information than what's readily available. Another quote that I found that I think outlines the importance of forensic science is, "If the law has made you a witness, remain a man of science. You have no victim to avenge, no guilty or innocent person to convict or save. You must bear testimony within the limits of science." I think this is relevant because you can't make any assumptions. Everything you do has to be based on what you're given. A lot of times in TV shows you see them investigate and do all these things, but you actually can't do that. Okay, so for my research, I did a lot on what's the difference between reality and what they show on television. So it's definitely a stretch of reality, and a lot of the things they do, although they are accurate, they happen much quicker on TV. So there's things that they do in maybe 30 minutes, but in reality it takes days or sometimes weeks. I asked the people I interviewed what they thought the difference was, and for the majority of them agreed that they do try and get everything correct, but not everything on TV is possible. Some of the processes won't hold up in a court setting. So a lot of times you'll see them do taking partial prints and putting them together, but that's not something that would hold up in court. For my interviews, so I had 6 interviews, and through them I learned a lot about what it's like to work in the setting of a crime lab. It's definitely not a glamorous profession like they showed on TV, so you can't be afraid to get dirty or I also wasn't aware that in the forensic science field they put a lot of emphasis on social skills. You wouldn't think so, but they actually use them a lot because you have to be able to convey some difficult and complicated topics to a jury of people who might not understand what you're talking about. Also for my interviews, they talked a lot about how it's a male-dominated profession. So as a woman, you have to be able to handle yourself in a certain manner. And they also have really decent hours. In most places, there's 2 to 3, sometimes more criminalists, or if you're in a police station, per setting. So you get to work decent hours. It's normally 3 days off, 4 days on, and then it's a normal 8 to 5 work day, and sometimes you're on call. Overall, I learned a lot from my interviews, and I think they helped me on my original work. So for my original work, what I did was I wanted to do something that would be new and challenging and that would introduce me to the basics of forensic science. So I got to research the 3 most common types of fingerprinting. So there's dusting with black powder, which is used on non-porous surfaces, so tables, desks, and lots of times they do it on things that you can't take from a crime scene. Secondly, there's something called superglue fuming, which is used on odd shapes, so water bottles or remotes, things like that. And the last one is called ninhydrin processing, which is used on porous surfaces like paper. So first, for the black powder, there's regular black powder, and then there's magnetic. So what you do is there's this little brush and it has really fine fibers, and you just have whatever you're doing it on. So when I did mine, we did it on coffee mugs. So here you can see, if you want to like pass these around, you can see like how the powder makes the print show up. So what I got to do was, here's another one. You take the mug and you take the powder and you just get a little bit on the brush, and then you just kind of twirl it around above it until you can see like where they're isolated. And then once you've gotten enough to like make them show up, they just took tape and you put it on there and stick it on paper, so you can see them. And on the one that has the arrows on it, on the example, that's with the magnetic powder. That one was really hard to tell because that was my first time doing it with that, so I like pressed too hard, so it got on there where there wasn't fingerprints also. And on the other one, that's on the small index card, it didn't work very well because my mentor, those were like her fingerprints, and so she said that she doesn't have very oily hands, so they didn't show up very well. You can't see the definition. Next, for that one, I just learned that it's really tedious, and it's you wouldn't think it'd be that hard, but it actually is. So for the next one, I did a process called superglue fuming, and it's used on non-porous surfaces, so like water bottles. So what we did was we took here. You can touch that; it's not going to get on you or anything. You take whatever the surface is you're using, and you put it into this little chamber. And then there's this little like wand, it's like the size of a pencil maybe, and they have these little capsules that have super glue in them, and you just drop it in there, and then it heats up. So when you like stick that thing in the chamber, it fills it with this gaseous super glue, and it basically sticks to where the fingerprints are. So on there you can see the white is where it got stuck on there. So right there on that, it doesn't really look like you can tell much, but what we did next was we took this chemical called rhodamine ardrox, and we just covered the bottle in it, and then that allows you to see it under different lights. So first, here's a little video. It's kind of hard to understand. So, oh, it started automatically. It'll take a second. So here he like puts it in this container, and so there's like the gas, and basically it makes the fingerprints show up easy on something you couldn't dust. It obviously doesn't happen that fast. That's really it. Yeah, that's all you need to see. So these are pictures. So that's right after we took it out of the container. And then this is under a light wavelength of 515. And so that's where you could see the rhodamine. So like on the O, you can see like where there's like the ridges of a fingerprint. It's kind of hard to tell on here. And then that was with the other light wavelength, and you could see it with the ardrox. This was really interesting because it helped me understand how the other processes work, because they all work in a similar manner, but that one it was really easy to visualize what was going on. Lastly, there was the ninhydrin, and this is used on basically paper is the most common application. So what you do is you take, so like if I was just to do this paper, we just covered it in the chemical, and then you hang it up, like there's like those little hoods like that have the vents in them, and so you just hang it up, and then it just dries out. And then what you do is you take a heat source. So in Allen they just use an iron, so you have to wrap it in paper towel because heat can make paper burn. So we wrapped it in a paper towel, and then you just hold the iron over it. And I don't have an example for this because when we were doing it, the iron started dripping everywhere, so it got a little ruined. But it was really interesting to see because you could see where the ninhydrin was showing up, and it turned the paper purple, as you can see in the picture. This really reiterated the importance of doing trial runs and because you definitely don't want to destroy your only physical evidence. Overall, what is this doing? Okay, I'll just stay here. Overall, it was really interesting to do because I got to learn processes that were applicable in a real-world setting. So it wasn't just something that I was doing to fill time. It was really cool to do, and my mentor helped me a lot. A lot of things we had to do more than once. The next time, so I went last Thursday, and that was going to be my third mentor visit. But when I got there, she had been called out on a burglary, so I didn't actually. She asked me to bring like more cans and stuff that I could do fingerprinting on and bring here for my presentation, but I didn't get to do that. So when I got there, I just got to go up into one of like the conference rooms and sit there, and she had this binder for me, and I got to read about like how to identify fingerprints. So once you get to these, they take them and they have to scan them into the computer, but they have to like narrow the results. They can't just put them in like that. They have to say like what type of fingerprint it is, all the like the markers that led them to that belief. So that was really interesting because it like gave me an idea of what was after. Okay. So my mentors are Callie McClendon, and she works at the Allen Police Department, and Tamika Robinson, and she works at the Frisco Police Department. Not sure why it doesn't say that on there. So basically what I've been doing with them is getting to work on these processes. They did a lot of showing me before I got to do it, because some of them, like, they take a lot of time, so messing it up wouldn't have been ideal. I chose my mentors because they're both really easy to work with, and they're nice and easy to talk to. They both have a ton of experience locally and elsewhere. Callie, before she worked at Allen, after college she was an intern at the Garland Police Department, and there they have a huge forensic science division, and so she got to see a lot working there. Tamika, she lived in Louisiana, so in the Baton Rouge area, so she worked at their police department, and she has all these crazy stories of things she saw. My experience with my original work really helped me expand my general knowledge of forensic science, because I learned how to perform processes that they use in real criminal investigations. And it was also interesting because, like, when you see them done on TV, you actually understand what they're doing. So in the video I showed you for like 10 seconds, it was from CSI Miami. And so normally, like, you're like, oh, you know, he's just putting that thing in a refrigerator or something. But it was actually really cool to see and understand what was happening and what the results were giving. Because of this, I am really excited for my final product. Hopefully I can do something that builds on this, or maybe something a little more complicated that takes more time. I hope that I can do something equally as beneficial. And that's all. Thank you. How do I?